My lord, we have taken Lord Suruga's head!
Perfect!
You know, I never played Onimusha Warlords before. Well, technically I did play it as a kid, but I got scared and turned the game off. Onimusha could be described as the samurai version of Resident Evil, as it shares many of its gameplay design and mechanics. Capcom recently announced a remaster of Onimusha 2, which I really hope gets a physical edition. And they also announced a brand new entry into this dormant franchise, Onimusha Way of the Sword. I figured this would be the perfect time to give these games a real go, compared to my cowardly younger self. Onimusha may be its own franchise, but does it really actually separate itself enough from its influences to be its own thing? Onimusha puts you in the shoes of Samanosuke, a well-trained samurai who has returned to save Princess Yuki from a demon horde taking over Inabayama Castle. The player must become one with the sword and master Samanosuke's controls. Onimusha reuses the movement system of Resident Evil. That would be tank controls, a control scheme that many people, including myself once upon a time, wasn't too fond of. Now, tank controls in a hack and slash game? That sounds ridiculously unintuitive, but somehow they made this system work. Samanosuke can only move forward and backwards. Left and right only rotate him, and the press of the analog stick can turn him 180 degrees. These are the classic tank controls that many gamers hate. Even I wasn't a fan of tank controls until my recent playthroughs of the classic Tomb Raider games. Thanks to those games, I was able to see how well tank controls can work, and in Onimusha, it's no different. When in danger, you can lock onto your enemy. This keeps Samanosuke focused on his target, and changes his left and right movements to a dashing strafe. Now, it's important to know that by holding the direction you want to go, he will continue to circle around his enemy, allowing you to get behind them and do massive damage. I had to mention this because I had been tapping the left and right button when I was trying to strafe, and that is very useful, don't get me wrong, but actually holding the button fully down is very important to get completely behind the enemy without having to tap your way across the screen. But it is pretty goofy to watch him slide across the screen going forward and backwards. It's like he's doing a little dance or something. Moving backwards is also a great way to add distance between you and your foes. Tapping back will make you play Samanosuke's initial dash, but holding down the back button will allow you to keep walking backwards. Tapping here is also very useful, especially when demons spawn behind you. Instead of having to turn completely around, you could just tap and dash your way backwards and end up sliding in position to get to where you need to go to take them out. Samanosuke's movement is surprisingly quick for a samurai. He is light on his feet and could easily maneuver himself around the stage, getting himself out of or in trouble if you're feeling aggressive. The biggest hurdle for most newcomers will be getting used to the tank controls in combination with these tight environments you will find yourself in. The HD remaster does allow for full analog controls, but I highly recommend you do not use them, and here's why. If you've ever played Resident Evil, you should be familiar with Onimusha's style of movement and camera changes. Both games use fixed camera angles for each room you step in. Some rooms may even have multiple camera changes with only a few steps in between each one. The constant camera changes are cool but can be confusing. But thanks to tank controls, these controls actually solve the dilemma that comes with multiple camera changes. Tank controls have a consistency that is tied to the character itself. What that means is, no matter how the camera changes, forward is always forward, back is always back, and left and right are always the same as well. Now don't forget that left and right could read backwards if your player is facing the camera or if they're not facing the camera. It just depends on the direction of the character. This allows for more dynamic and fresh camera angles while also keeping the player's movement persistent. These controls are crucial to the flow of Onimusha. Using the analog stick does allow for 360-degree movement, but at the risk of less dependable controls. See, you could easily go from one camera angle to another, even while in the middle of a fight. Now imagine moving forwards to now forwards meaning backwards, because analog is not locked to the character's facing position, but the direction of the camera itself. Capcom's other classic hack and slash, Devil May Cry, is plagued with these issues, Anyone that's played these games knows exactly what I'm talking about. Dante will move forward only for the camera to change, then he auto turns around because his movement is linked to the camera itself. I get why they wanted to use full analog here in this game, as previous generations mainly stuck with digital input outside of Nintendo. Thing is though, the dynamic camera switching does not play well with these types of controls. You have no choice but to get used to having your inputs flipped on you in Devil May Cry. But thankfully in Onimusha, the superior tank controls are the definitive way to play. So I would recommend you just stick with those. Unlike Dante, Samanosuke isn't swimming in crazy combos. He's more of a reserved swordsman, if you will, opting for more of a practical way of fighting rather than stylish. Each weapon has a basic combo that can be different depending upon the weapon. Tap and square is all you need to do regardless of the blade that you're using. No need to memorize a move list because Samanosuke just doesn't have one. Don't worry though, there is a level of depth to Onimusha that fans of hack and slash games can still get behind. You can poke your foes by locking on and pressing up and square. This simple poke, if you're close enough to the enemy, can also turn into a slash upwards, which is pretty useful to use at times as well, especially when you're fighting airborne enemies. The Gale Blade's poke is a little bit different. It actually moves Samanosuke forward. So you want to make sure that when you have this weapon now that you don't think you're going to do a normal poke, and instead think of this as a way to get more aggressive. Samanosuke also has a funny little kick too. On smaller demons, he can actually knock them down to the ground, allowing you to rush in and do a quick stab. There are even magic attacks with each weapon. These do massive damage and can be a great get out of jail free card in any battle. Now there are ranged weapons too with the bow and the rifle. These can be used on any enemy, but I would actually save your ammo for flying demons, as waiting for them to get too low to the ground just to hit them can be a little risky if surrounded and annoying because Samanosuke doesn't always get a good swing at them. Defense is where things get interesting. You can block, of course, and it's important to know that blocking is extremely powerful in this game. Some heavy attacks can knock you out of your block, but blocking, even while not necessarily facing your attacker, can still result in a deflection. The cooler defensive option comes in with the counter system. Counterattacks work in two different ways. You have a counter that triggers if you attack a demon right before it hits you. Then you have a counter that works if you block right before the demon tries to strike you, which is basically a parry system. I highly recommend for beginners to just stick to the defensive option at first until you get used to countering by attacking before they attack. The reason why is because if you try to parry and you miss the parry, 9 times out of 10 you will continue to block, so that means you won't take damage anyway. Versus trying to attack before they attack and you end up getting knocked on your butt. Performing a counterattack will result in a critical hit, which typically takes out most demons in one blow. Now don't worry guys, it's not a requirement to beat the game to use these, but it is a great technique to learn as they can actually give you extra health if you manage to get the timing right. If you see this yellow flash go off or Samanosuke quickly dodges then strikes, you know you pulled it off. Now Samanosuke isn't the only hero in this game. Kaede is Samanosuke's friend who uses her ninja skills to flip over her enemies to get in a nice backstab. She's faster and more agile than her samurai friend. She controls the same way as Samanosuke does, but unfortunately she can't be upgraded like Samanosuke. She does get an extra weapon if you search for it, and though she may lack magical attacks, she does have her trusty kunai that she can use to hit enemies from afar. You will have a decent amount of demons to fight on your adventure. Demons can be broken up into 3 main categories. There are demons that are more about speed, some more about strength, and then you got your all-around demons that are pretty decent in both categories. Speed demons are obviously quick on their feet, as some of them can even bounce around all over the screen, making them difficult to hit. If you manage to kick one, that's an easy way to stop their mobility, and after you knock them down, make sure you jump up on them and stab them real good. Strength demons are slow and have easy to tell windups with each swing. You will typically fight these guys alongside speed demons, and I suggest you deal with the faster ones first. The strength demons should be easy to circle around, allowing you to get in some really hard back shots. Just make sure you move out of the way of their overhead attacks. You can't block these, and these will knock Samanosuke down, putting him in a very vulnerable state. Now, the all-around demons are a bit special. Any weapon is good to use on them, but some of them actually have cool abilities like being able to go invisible or splitting up into multiple clones, so you gotta stay on your toes with them. Some demons actually look like samurai and actually carry shields, which gives them a defensive option that other demons don't have. You can actually be grabbed by these guys too, and the cool thing, you can go into a clash with them as well, which you can reverse if you are quick on mashing the D-pad. It was pretty cool to discover that you can actually flip them across the screen, because at first I thought that all you could do was just end the clash without them knocking you down, but when I figured this out, I tried to do it every single time. A samurai action game wouldn't be complete without boss fights. Each boss fight is enjoyable, but I'm gonna be honest with you, you really don't have to switch up any of your strategies that you learn with basic enemies. There are a few special attacks, like this one demon can ram you, which requires you to basically run away from him, or this one boss fight that focuses more on ranged attacks while being swarmed by enemies that you should be attacking close quarters. Ultimately, the bosses are not much to worry about. They're fun, but all you really need to do is to play smart, block, and just keep swinging. Samanosuke will get a few weapons to fight off the demons. He has a basic katana, a thunder slash blade, a flame dragon sword, a gale blade, and Bishamon, the ultimate weapon to fight off the demons. Each sword has their pros and cons, and each can be upgraded to increase their range and damage. You begin your adventure with the katana. The katana is as simple as it gets. It does decent damage at first, but as time goes on, you will fight more powerful demons. The katana becomes useless after you get the thunder blade, but it's a good starting weapon to teach you the basics. If you want a challenge, you could use the katana past its worth, and I'm sure that might be something that some people do on repeat playthroughs. The thunder blade is the complete replacement for the katana. The thunder blade maintains the katana's 4-hit combo while also allowing for magical attacks. The thunder blade locks you into a multiple hit combo that ends with a lightning blast that can do damage to surrounding bad guys. Some demons can block this attack, but overall, it's a great move to deal massive damage while Samanosuke is immune from being struck. An all-around good weapon for speed, power, and range. The flaming dragon sword hits like a tank. It's pretty long, but slow. Its wide sweeps are perfect for crowd control, but don't get too wrapped up in its power. I have found myself getting smacked around by fast foes because my slow windup wasn't quick enough to catch them. But it was great for shield demons, as the sword can easily break their shields. As its name suggests, this bad boy has flame powers, and you can send a blast of heat right in the face of evil. Burn in hell, you damn demons. The Gale Blade is as quick as the wind. It has a 5-hit combo, long range, and its twirling makes this the best weapon to use when trying to control the crowd. It is, however, very weak. Its dazzling dance can be mesmerizing to see, but make sure you don't get swept up in it yourself. Use more powerful weapons when the game calls for it. The Gale Sword has a huge tornado blast that can hit multiple demons, even ones above you. If you're surrounded, just whip this bad boy out and blow away your opponents. Bishamon is the ultimate demon killing machine. You can only unlock this sword by completing a special challenge within Onimusha. It has unlimited magical attacks, the same moveset as the katana, kills demons in only a few hits if not one, and is really the best weapon in the game. It's nothing bad to say about it at all. Just use it and have fun. As for range, you have the bow and the rifle. There's really not much to say about either one of these. The bow is weaker than the rifle, but ammo for it is easier to find. The rifle isn't unlocked until later in the game anyway, and really is just made for a certain boss fight near the end of the game. It's nice that they added ranged weapons to add some type of variety from the hacking and slashing, but ultimately these are just lock-on weapons that require really no strategy other than making sure you don't get hit by another demon's arrow. So They're nice to have, but it's nothing really to talk about. In order to survive the attack of the demons, Samanosuke must collect souls, orbs, weapons, key items, and journals. Souls are the most common collectible as you get them by taking out demons. There are 3 types of souls to remember. Red souls are used for leveling up orbs, swords, and items. Upgrading your swords make them more powerful and transforms their appearance. These aren't just cosmetic changes as the sword does get a bit longer, adding more range to your attacks. They also can be used to enhance orbs to further progression and buff up regular items such as herbs to full medkits. Blue souls give you back magic and yellow souls heal you. The least common of all the souls is the yellow soul, but there is a way to get them to come out more often. You could trigger more yellow souls by performing counters. This adds a nice risk and reward to combat as countering could result in a hit if you don't time it just right. So there's been times I've been in situations where I need health, I don't have any health kits, and I want to get a counter off, but I'm afraid that if I try to go for a counter and get hit, I'll die. But if I pull it off, I not only will take out my enemy, but I'll get extra health. It's a great mechanic that they added to Onimusha, and I think it'd be nice if more games had something similar to this. As you progress through the story, you will collect these magical orbs. With each orb comes one of your main weapons. Leveling up orbs is separate from leveling up your weapons, which is very important. The only reason you would want to level up your orbs is to be able to unlock specific doors. You are required to max out all your orbs, so if you find yourself in a situation where you can't progress, it might be time for you to do a little grinding so that you can get some orbs leveled up. There are also health items to find, a rifle and a bow for long range attacks alongside their ammo. I found out the hard way that ammo and health items are limited in this game, so do not waste them. Onimusha also has your classic items that allow you to solve puzzles, unlock doors that aren't blocked by orbs, and they even have this cool item that allows you to speak to the dead, which kind of gives you a little bit of a backstory and may even tell you where a secret might be. Occasionally, you will run into a few survivors. If you manage to save them, they will drop helpful goodies. I really like this mechanic, and there were times I even reloaded my game just to see if I could help out my fellow comrades. There is also a dark realm or a demon realm you can go to where you fight through multiple floors to get an item that will allow you to get the special weapon at the end of the game. There's also other small items in here that you should find as well that are helpful through this challenge. This was a fun challenge and the reward is so worth it. There are also these blue stones that you can find in secret places all throughout the map. If you manage to collect them all, you unlock a special game mode once you beat Onimusha. You can always look up a guide for these, but there is an item that you can find in the game that will just show you where they are if you're near one. Just like Resident Evil, Onimusha has different journals that you can find throughout the map that give you extra lore when it comes to this game's plot. Thankfully, there aren't a lot of them and the reading is light. So for anyone that's like me that doesn't really care to do this type of stuff, like stopping my game just to read a story in the background, I would actually recommend doing that on Onimusha because like I said, the reading is light, it's not that many of them, and it's actually a pretty interesting story that comes tied to it. There are also other types of books as well that help you solve puzzles. There are these decoder boxes that need certain questions to be answered in order to get the reward inside. Certain books give you key terms along with a story to answer these questions. Cool thing is, even if you don't have all the chapters in one book, which will complete the whole story to easily find out what the answer is, you could actually look at other books and kind of use your brain to figure out which word may match somewhere else. I did this a few times with a couple of the books. The decoder typically gives you an item that permanently increases your health or magic bar, so I recommend you do these. Plus, they're just fun. There are also these very fun lock puzzles that involve you cycling numbers that you must get in numerical order. I really enjoyed doing these, and as you get closer to the end of the game, they get pretty hard. Rewards can be health, weapons, or even armor. Onimusha has its fair share of story-driven puzzles too. There is a whole room designed as a death trap that you must navigate, and it's a good break in the gameplay as before this, you were pretty much doing nothing but fighting. Onimusha being based off of the design of Resident Evil will have you exploring room after room, solving puzzles, fighting off bad guys in your way, and backtracking to past locations you previously couldn't access. I feel that Onimusha handles this formula better than Resident Evil overall. Resident Evil is more about being a survival horror game, while Onimusha is more horror themed. The difference being is that Resident Evil makes combat less predictable while limiting your inventory and items. Onimusha does none of that, and by giving me more control over my ability to defend myself, I feel that deaths are completely my fault and not due to the lack of bullets and resources. Now before you guys kill me, I get that resource management in Resident Evil is up to the player, but fully understanding where things are and the average amount of any item comes with repeat playthroughs. Resident Evil shines based upon your knowledge of the game itself, which is why playing the game multiple times is so great. But I think for some people, the first playthrough will be frustrating. But Onimusha, I don't think has that problem at all. Just like Resident Evil, Onimusha uses pre-rendered backgrounds for its setting. These were upscaled for the remaster and look absolutely great. You know, I would actually love to see a modern game today use pre-rendered backgrounds. On second thought, scratch that. They'll probably use 4K images, which I'm sure would look amazing, but then my game would be like 300 gigabytes and the game only been 10 hours anyway. Yeah, just do what you guys are already doing. Character models do look good in this game with detailed faces and expressions for the time. For the time is important to emphasize that. Thanks to the dynamic camera, Onimusha has some sick camera angles when traveling and fighting. This adds a cinematic flair that games today try to imitate, but fail. There are times that bad guys can block your view, but it never got me into much trouble. All I had to do was just cut them down to see where I need to go. Personally, I think games from this era look better than games do today. By not going completely realistic, Onimusha allows me to fill in the blanks in my brain rather than the devs trying to capture every little detail of human behavior. This is where the uncanny valley shows its ugly face. And although the new Onimusha looks great, it can look a little bit creepy. But then again, the game isn't done yet, so who knows. Onimusha also blends its graphics with its gameplay. There are items in the world that appear to be static, but aren't. Swinging your sword against certain objects may reveal a secret, or even help you out in combat. There are also extra souls that you can absorb from background images if you pay enough attention. I wish there was more to interact with, as discovering what I could manipulate within the world was a treat. The best example of the graphics is found in the cutscenes, which is a perfect time for us to finally get into the story. Onimusha opens up with a great battle between Nobunaga and Yoshimoto. As the battle rages on, Samanosuke spectates from afar until he gets attacked. Nobunaga, seeing victory in the horizon, celebrates a bit too early and gets an arrow to the throat. But strangely enough, he just pops up alive again. The game cuts to Princess Yuki of the Saito clan writing Samanosuke to come and save her, as people have been going missing all around her and there has been rumors of monsters in the region. Samanosuke rushes back with Kaede, but they're too late. They decided to split up to search for her, but luckily enough, Samanosuke immediately finds her held captive by a demon. I think this is kind of funny because Samanosuke was probably only like, a few minutes late from finding her initially? Because she's probably only like, maybe a few feet away from where they were? Samanosuke, after doing this funny looking move, manages to fight off the lesser demons, but then gets jumped by this giant one. After getting whacked around, Yuki gets taken off and Samanosuke falls unconscious. While knocked out, Samanosuke gets visited by the spirits of the ogres. They grant him the gauntlet to destroy the demons. The ogres fought against the demons long ago and wanted nothing more than to see them die today. Samanosuke, not fully understanding what just happened, put his questions aside to head after Princess Yuki. He travels deep underground and finds a temple along with a mummified monk, a scroll, and your first orb and magical weapon. This scroll tells Samanosuke more about the ogre gauntlet and the story of a cowardly monk who documented the demons along with their practices in realm. He escapes the temple and makes his way to the castle. It's sealed by a red orb, and he must go to the southern keep by ladder to find a way through. He runs into the big demon again that took Yuki away. She's nowhere to be found, and Samanosuke isn't getting much information from this guy. After running around in circles, Samanosuke manages to beat the giant demon, and heads through the hole that his big butt created. He then runs into the ugliest creature I have ever seen in my life, and it explains that Nobunaga was resurrected by the demons and became their slave afterwards. He then sicks his new abomination on us, but Samanosuke easily takes it out. He grabs another orb along with a new sword and can now enter the castle. Inside is nothing but dead bodies and demons. There are a few survivors, giving hope that Yuki may be okay. He runs into a man wrestling with a boy, and once the boy breaks free, Samanosuke questions the older man. Tokichiro is a member of the Oda clan, the same one ran by Nobunaga. Makes sense, right? His name is Nobunaga Oda. He tries recruiting Samanosuke and he sternly declines, saying he serves no one. Now, I'm not an expert on Japanese culture at all, but if I'm not mistaken, would this not make Samanosuke a Ronin? We run into Kaede, who has caught up with the boy that ran off. Yumimaru is standoffish and makes a break for it without answering any questions. Kaede goes after him and Samanosuke goes back to looking for the princess. After fighting many demons, Samanosuke ends upstairs and runs into Kaede once again. Kaede has new information about Yumimaru. The boy is the son of a farmer who passed away. Princess Yuki brought him to the castle and raised him like a brother. They assumed he must have came to the castle in order to rescue Yuki. But as they were talking, the walls then come down and cage them in. The samurai and the ninja must work their way through a series of death traps in order to survive. After escaping, they find a lever leading further up into the keep. Now I gotta ask this question. Who the heck built this room? Gameplay aside, just from a narrative or maybe a realistic point of view, what purpose would this room serve in someone's castle? Like, these rooms aren't blocking anything important as far as I could tell in the house, so why in the world would this even be here? Like, I get it's a video game, but it's kind of just silly. After heading upstairs, we run into a locked door requiring a crest in order to open it. I found one of them early on, but I couldn't find the other one. I ran all around the castle trying to find the other piece, only to come to the realization that I actually missed this prompt that you could go further down this particular ladder, which made me feel pretty silly once I realized I just wasted my time running around the castle. Once I'm inside, I see Yumimaru has been captured by one of the demons. I'm stopped again by Tokichiro, who warns us that we are interfering with Nobunaga and the demons. His plan is to rule the world with them, and Samanosuke isn't having any of it. Tokichiro escapes after telling Samanosuke of the dark ceremony that will take place. Nobunaga will drink the blood of Princess Yuki out of her own skull. Samanosuke, being completely frustrated, takes a swing at Tokichiro as he leaves. Further along, Yumimaru is trapped behind a door that requires an orb that we don't currently have. On the rooftop is a demon, with a similar gauntlet to ours. A beautiful duel under the moonlight takes place. The creature is pretty tough, but Samanosuke manages to strike him down and take his orb, giving him a new weapon along with the ability to save Yumimaru. He brings the sleeping boy back downstairs, where both he and Kaede look after him. He wakes up and begs them to save Yuki. Samanosuke then begins to explain to Kaede of Yuki's past. She was the daughter of a lord and given away in arranged marriage. With little to no freedom, she took in Yumimaru as a way to help others when she herself has felt helpless. Samanosuke tells the boy of his travels. His uncle encouraged him to explore the world, and in his journey, he met many different people from many different lands. This experience showed Samanosuke how foolish Japan can be with their constant fighting over trivial things. He urges Yumimaru to see the world one day as well. A woman abruptly rushes into the room. She says she serves another princess in the castle and that Yuki has been trapped underground. Samanosuke then heads off to the basement. After passing a blocked door, Samanosuke is now in the basement, where it seems that the demons have turned it into some type of laboratory of some kind, full of experimented demons and lost souls. He fights his way through and again runs into Tokichiro. He tries one more time to recruit Samanosuke, but I'm sure you can guess what the answer is. He then strikes Samanosuke with some kind of lightning magic and the floor begins to sink. As we drift down, he tells us that Kaede is probably in trouble. Kaede is still with the boy and the young maid, when in comes Samanosuke? The maid grabs the boy and Samanosuke knocks out Kaede. What the heck is actually going on here? Kaede wakes up and then searches for the boy. Kaede finds a half-dead soldier who tells her about the monsters that are coming from the West Prison. She grabs his key and heads there. Kaede fights many monsters and solves a puzzle or two. She finds the underground cell with Yuki trapped inside. Kaede and Yuki have never met before, but she knows of her through Samanosuke's letters. Yuki wishes she could have traveled the world with Samanosuke, and Kaede reassures her that one day she can. But then in comes this butt-ugly monster again and takes Yuki into the darkness. Kaede is now trapped with a demon that can go invisible, but she out-ninjas him and manages to take him down. She then runs to find Samanosuke. Samanosuke happens to be deep underground and has to find his way to escape. Sometimes in life, our greatest enemy is ourselves, and Onimusha has their version of a Dark Link battle where Samanosuke must beat his evil doppelganger. After a battle with oneself, he heads back up into the keep, and he finally unlocks a door that has been blocked this entire time by a demonic key. Inside, the sexy maid reveals her true identity as a giant hornet demon. Funny thing is, this scene is actually censored. You could tell that it's been censored because there's something about this animation that just seems rushed a bit. As the door to the demon world erects from the ground, she takes the boy with her, laughing maniacally. A barrier is placed over the door and Kaede comes in suggesting that they find a way around it. Now wait just a minute. I think it's a bit weird and convenient how Kaede just pops up here, plus she never brings up why Samanosuke hit her. Now I know it was the doppelganger that did it, but according to the narrative, I don't think Kaede knows that, nor does Samanosuke know that that even happened. And I think it would have just been nice or cool if they kind of addressed it. He travels to the west end of the map, battling even more demons. Samanosuke finds a ceremonial sword, which he uses to get inside the eastern side of the keep. After outplaying this demon, Samanosuke heads by boat to another building. He gets jumped by some bug-like demons after finding the Great Bow. Kaede isn't far behind him. She finds the Great Arrow and heads to the same building as Samanosuke. She sees that he is in trouble, and instead of going in to help him, she just yells through the door, and I really don't even think he heard anything she said through this door. Then in comes the Hornet Lady. She explains that by having Yumimaru killed in front of Yuki, the power Nobunaga will gain will be greater due to Yuki having been saddened before she died. You all battle it out, and here's where Onimusha basically becomes Resident Evil as you gun down this giant wasp. Kaede pops up again after rigging the building to blow. You both barely escape, and Samanosuke heads after Yuki while Kaede rests. Samanosuke uses the Great Bow to pierce through the barrier and enters the demon world. You are greeted by the ugly demon once again, and after some banter, you fight his last creation. Samanosuke defeats him and presses on. Once inside, Samanosuke gets Bishamon, the ultimate weapon to slay the demons. After destroying a few grunts, we're finally here. Yuki and Yumimaru are trapped, and in comes the Demon King. He summons Nobunaga to come down to drink the blood of Yuki. The Demon King tortures Yuki a bit before Samanosuke pledges that he will die trying to kill him. With Bishamon in hand, the Demon King gets his snake butt whooped, and Kaede comes in to help Samanosuke to free their friends. As the building begins to collapse, the Demon King rises and snatches up our hero. He tells the others to escape while he dies in the hands of the Demon King. As his blood bursts from his mouth, it falls on his gauntlet, turning him into an Oni. With his new power, he finally kills the Demon King for good, but then Nobunaga appears. The game cuts to a future time as the narrator explains the fate of our cast. Oda army won the war, but Nobunaga is not seen. Yuki and Yumimaru leave Japan to see the world. Kaede did spend some time trying to search for Samanosuke, but she never found him and sadly died years later. Our hero Samanosuke's whereabouts are unknown, but the end credits do reveal that he is alive somewhere with his gauntlet in hand. The story of Onimusha isn't anything to write home about. It's by no means bad, but it's clearly a story created to drive the gameplay and give context to the events happening. There are many plot points left unfinished in order to set up the game for a potential sequel, which Onimusha had plenty of. I can say that I had a good time following along with the story and it kept my attention the whole entire time. Most games don't have groundbreaking stories, especially when that wasn't the point of that game's creation. Onimusha provides a serviceable plot that you may forget in its totality, but your overall fate and memory of Onimusha's story will be a positive one. It took me only 8 hours to beat Onimusha, and that's with me getting lost a few times, finding all the blue stones, getting most of the collectibles, and beating the optional dark realm to get Bishamon. That doesn't sound long at all, and it's not. For a newcomer like me, it took me about a weekend to beat Onimusha, which is great because now when you return to it, you'll know all the ins and outs, and you could probably beat the game in only a few hours. Gamers today believe that a game should offer many hours of play to justify the asking price. This affects even indie games today, which is why $20 indies could take you longer to beat than Onimusha. Turning everything into a roguelite or adding some level of RNG to pad out a game has been a plague on the industry for some time now, especially ever since Skyrim. Skyrim was the big AAA game that everyone loved, which had generated content that, looking back, was really just a bunch of fetch quests that were boring. But at the time, it was revolutionary. You could play Skyrim for hours and never see the end because it really doesn't have an end. Games like Onimusha banked on their design being so fun that you would want to simply replay the game over and over again. Think of quality over quantity. Once you beat the game, you're ranked on your overall performance, and you get a nice goofy outfit for Samanosuke, and you can unlock one for Kaede as well. Due to the game being so short and fun, running the game back again to get a higher score is on my list of things to do. There is also a special game mode called Oni Spirits. Here, you must break pots before you die, or the enemy depletes too many of them themselves. This is surprisingly difficult, even more so than the base game. It's more of a puzzle game than a hack and slash experience. It's frustrating, but surprisingly addictive, and if you beat it, you unlock Ultimate Mode. After punishing yourself with Oni Spirits, Ultimate Mode basically gives you maxed out everything from the start along with Bishamon. It makes perfect sense that Ultimate Mode will give you the ultimate weapon. Onimusha may have been developed for the PS2, but it originally began as a PlayStation 1 title. It was actually going to be a spin-off to Resident Evil titled Sendoku Biohazard. They actually got halfway through the development of the PS1 game until they scrapped it for the PS2 version. I really wish it would be cool if someone could find like a copy of this and dump it on the internet just for us to see, but only time will tell. Capcom really banked on Onimusha and spent up to $10 million on marketing alone. Onimusha was also ported to the Xbox under the name Genma Onimusha. The game had better graphics, different armor, and new bosses. A new mechanic was added where demons could actually absorb their own orbs and get more powerful, which added to the difficulty. Sadly, the remastered version does not have any of this content, making the Xbox version a specific version locked to that platform alone. I've actually read online where people actually were downvoting the HD remastered version of this game, not because it's bad, but because it didn't have this extra content, or at least an option to choose between the original version or Genma. As you guys know, I've never played this version of the game, but online people sure do claim it to be the definitive way to play Onimusha. It's a shame that it's locked to the Xbox, but maybe one day Capcom will release it. I always wanted to sit down and finally give Onimusha a shot, and I'm glad I did. It was always considered one of the best games released on the PlayStation 2, and with an 86 on Metacritic, I can see why. It's a smooth ride from top to bottom. Outside of Oni Spirit, there is no frustrating part of Onimusha, and even that game mode has its fun to it. Nothing too hard for newcomers, but also not so simple that it's uninteresting. Onimusha is clearly an extension of the Resident Evil franchise. From its creation, it began as a Resident Evil game, and because of that, it uses tons of Resident Evil's gameplay design. I wouldn't say anyone is wrong for claiming that Onimusha is just a Resident Evil clone. But it's important to understand that Onimusha being more focused about action than puzzle solving and resource management does make it its own thing. Onimusha really won't satisfy anyone looking for a survival horror experience like Resident Evil. But at the same time, if you want a hack and slash experience, Resident Evil won't satisfy you. Meaning the differences between the two are great enough for me to say that Onimusha is really its own game and its own experience. Onimusha can easily be found digitally for $10, as it frequently goes on sale. If you're hyped for the future of Onimusha, or wish to know what all the fuss is about, I would recommend that you jump into the shoes of Samanosuke and become an Oni Warrior.
Kaede, Yume, Maru.